The morning sun had barely climbed above the glass towers of downtown Chicago when one tiny mistake changed a father's life forever. It wasn't $1 million accident. It wasn't a broken machine or a failed contract. It was one single cent. One lonely penny buried inside thousands of financial records. By lunchtime, a hard-working single father was standing outside the headquarters of one of America's biggest technology companies with a cardboard box in his arms, his employee badge deactivated, and his future shattered. But what nobody, not the ruthless CEO, not the executives, not even the security guards, could have imagined was that this 1-cent error was hiding the biggest corporate theft in the company's history, a crime worth more than $700 million. Before we continue, if you believe kindness is never weakness and that everyone deserves a second chance, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment, share it with your friends, and subscribe to Single Dad Empire. Your support helps us bring more emotional stories that remind the world compassion still matters. Every morning before sunrise, Rowan Mercer quietly began his day the same way. He packed lunch for his 8-year-old son, Finn, carefully cutting sandwiches into little triangles because that was how Finn liked them. He checked homework, tied loose shoelaces, reminded his son to smile no matter what happened at school, and only then hurried toward the train that carried him into the financial district. Since losing his wife, Nora, to an unexpected illness 3 years earlier, Rowan had become both father and mother. Every decision he made revolved around giving Finn a stable, loving childhood despite their modest apartment and limited income. Rowan worked as a senior reconciliation analyst at Titan Vertex Systems, a multinational defense technology company managing billions of dollars in government contracts. It wasn't glamorous work. Most people never noticed employees like him because they sat behind computer screens comparing endless columns of numbers. Yet Rowan loved the quiet satisfaction of making every figure balance perfectly. His coworkers often joked that he could spot an accounting mistake from across the room. He smiled at those jokes because accuracy wasn't simply part of his job. It was part of who he was. Everything changed on a bright Tuesday morning when the company prepared for an emergency quarterly audit. Investors were arriving. Board members filled conference rooms. Reporters waited outside. The recently appointed CEO, Cassandra Holt, wanted flawless numbers to impress everyone. She had earned a reputation for demanding perfection and showing little patience for mistakes. While reviewing thousands of automated transactions, Rowan noticed something unusual. Every report balanced except one international supplier account. The difference was exactly 1 cent. Most employees would have adjusted the figure automatically and moved on. Rowan refused. His instincts told him every number carried a story. He submitted a request for additional verification instead of approving the reconciliation. The timing could not have been worse. Minutes later, the delayed approval caused a presentation prepared for investors to display incomplete financial totals. During the executive meeting, Cassandra Holt exploded with anger. Without asking questions or reviewing Rowan's explanation, she ordered human resources to terminate him immediately for negligence, claiming that someone who could not handle a 1-cent discrepancy had no place inside a billion-dollar corporation. The entire accounting department watched in stunned silence as Rowan packed photographs of Finn, a coffee mug decorated with childish drawings, and the worn calculator he had used for years. Nobody defended him. Fear was stronger than loyalty. As Rowan stepped outside into the warm daylight carrying his small box, he looked toward the city skyline instead of looking back at the building. His heart ached, not because he had lost the job, but because he imagined Finn asking whether everything would be okay. Rowan had promised his son that adults always found a way. Now he silently prayed those words would somehow remain true. That afternoon Rowan picked Finn up from school as though nothing had happened. They stopped for ice cream even though money was suddenly scarce. Rowan laughed at his son's silly jokes, helped him with homework, and tucked him into bed with the same bedtime story they had read dozens of times. Only after Finn fell asleep did Rowan sit alone at the kitchen table staring at unpaid bills, wondering how long they could survive. Sleep never came easily that night. The 1-cent discrepancy kept replaying in his mind. The more he thought about it, the stranger it seemed. The transaction path had looked unusual. The supplier identification number had appeared genuine, yet several routing patterns seemed deliberately hidden. Rowan opened his personal notebook where he often wrote complicated calculations by hand. Page after page confirmed the same unsettling conclusion. The penny wasn't a mistake. It was a marker. Someone wanted careful accountants to ignore it. The following morning Rowan visited the public library because his company laptop had already been disabled. Using public financial databases and archived government records, he began comparing supplier histories. Hours passed unnoticed. Then something unbelievable appeared. The mysterious supplier had received hundreds of small payment adjustments spread across dozens of international subsidiaries. Each adjustment seemed insignificant, often just fractions of a cent rounded during automated currency exchanges. Individually they meant nothing. Together they formed invisible pathways moving enormous amounts of money between shell corporations. Rowan felt cold. This wasn't accounting. This was camouflage. Over several years, someone had built an incredibly sophisticated system where tiny rounding differences concealed gigantic transfers hidden inside legitimate international contracts. The 1-cent discrepancy existed only because one automated process had briefly failed to erase its own footprint. Rowan realized he possessed evidence capable of exposing one of the largest financial frauds in modern corporate history. Meanwhile, inside Titan Vertex Systems, executives celebrated another successful investor meeting. Cassandra Holt considered the previous day's firing completely justified. She believed discipline strengthened organizations. Her confidence disappeared 48 hours later. Federal investigators unexpectedly arrived carrying search warrants. Anonymous evidence had been delivered overnight. Entire accounting servers were seized. Banking partners froze international accounts. News helicopters circled overhead as television reporters announced possible financial misconduct involving hundreds of millions of dollars. Inside the chaos, investigators repeatedly asked one question: where was Rowan Mercer? Only then did executives discover the employee fired over 1 penny had been the only person who recognized the hidden pattern before the authorities became involved. Cassandra Holt felt something unfamiliar. Regret. Investigators soon located Rowan at his modest apartment. They expected to meet a bitter former employee seeking revenge. Instead they found a father helping his son build a cardboard model of the solar system for school. After Finn proudly explained every planet, Rowan quietly stepped into the hallway. He handed investigators pages of handwritten notes. Every calculation matched their independent findings. Every hidden transaction connected perfectly. The theft stretched across multiple countries, fake consulting firms, offshore accounts, and corrupted executives who had manipulated automated reconciliation software for years. The estimated loss exceeded $700 million. Federal authorities later described Rowan's observations as the breakthrough that prevented even greater losses. As arrests began across several states and overseas financial centers, the story spread through national news. Americans were stunned that history's largest corporate theft had been uncovered because one father refused to ignore a single penny. Titan Vertex Systems watched its stock price collapse. Board members demanded accountability. The investigation revealed several senior executives had secretly benefited from the scheme while intimidating employees who questioned irregularities. Cassandra Holt herself had not participated in the theft, but investigators criticized her leadership for creating a culture where fear replaced careful judgment. The board removed her as CEO. Weeks later, Rowan received an invitation to return to headquarters. This time the atmosphere felt entirely different. Employees stood and applauded as he entered. Many wiped away tears. Some quietly apologized for remaining silent when he had needed support most. The new interim chairman publicly admitted the company had failed one of its most honest employees. Instead of merely offering Rowan his old position back, they created an entirely new division dedicated to financial integrity and ethical oversight, with Rowan chosen to lead it. His salary nearly tripled. His opinions would now influence every major audit across the corporation. But the greatest reward waited outside the office. That evening Rowan picked Finn up from school. His son noticed something different immediately. His father smiled without pretending. For the first time in weeks the weight had disappeared from his shoulders. They celebrated with homemade pizza instead of expensive restaurants because those simple evenings had always mattered more. As they watched the sunset from a neighborhood park, Rowan realized success was never about impressive offices or executive titles. It was about remaining honest when dishonesty seemed easier. It was about protecting the truth even when telling it cost everything. Months later, Titan Vertex Systems established the Mercer Integrity Scholarship, supporting children of single parents pursuing careers in accounting, finance, and ethics. Rowan insisted the scholarship honor ordinary families who quietly sacrificed every day without expecting recognition. His story inspired companies nationwide to strengthen internal auditing procedures and encourage employees to question suspicious activity instead of fearing punishment. One penny had changed everything. Not because of its value. Because one honest man believed every detail deserved respect. If this story has touched your heart, please take a moment to like this video, leave a heartfelt comment, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to Single Dad Empire. Your support allows stories like Rowan's to remind people that honesty and kindness still change lives. Special request. Comment below with the words, "One honest heart can change the world." As the golden afternoon faded into evening, Rowan walked home beside Finn with nothing more than his son's small hand wrapped tightly around his own. The skyscrapers behind them still reached toward the sky, but they no longer represented power or wealth. They represented a lesson. Companies may be built with money, technology, and ambition, but they survive only because ordinary people choose integrity over convenience every single day. Rowan had lost everything because of one penny, yet that same penny uncovered $700 million in stolen dreams and restored justice for countless innocent people. And as father and son disappeared into the warm glow of the setting sun, they proved that even in a world obsessed with billions, the smallest act of honesty can become the greatest victory of all.